Team Liquid have officially been exposed. And the team to do it is none other than the Malaysian giants SRG. They exposed the full blueprint on how to beat TLPH. First, shut down their macro by not giving TLPH Claude and Luo Yi combo. If TLPH is first pick, then ban Claude. If you give TLPH Claude and Luo Yi, you're forced to deal with map pressure the whole game. Take a look at this. Sanji uses Divergent on Oheb, sends him to the top lane. Oheb clears the top lane and uses BMI to instantly return to the rest of the team. Now the enemy is forced to make a decision. Send someone and risk a 4v5 Lord fight or lose the top turret. SRG really did their homework on TLPH because the way they drafted against them is actually genius. Let's take a look at the draft. Team Liquid bans Fanny, Kalia, and Grok. SRG bans Eve, Jushin, and Yuzhong. From the bans alone, they pretty much shut down Sanji, since Sanji really shines on utility heroes. But they make the fatal mistake of opening Claude, and what do you know? TLPH locks Claude. SRG answers with Lance and Sora. I'm 100% positive Sora was intended for EXP lane, but since TLPH countered with Valentina, they just switched Sora to gold lane. Now remember how I said you don't want to give TLPH Claude and Luo Yi combo? Well, instead of wasting a valuable ban, SRG decided to pick her instead. This shows the amount of respect they have for TLPH because they gave up carry, knowing TLPH would ban her, to make sure they didn't get Claude and Luo Yi. And what do you know? Team Liquid bans carry. At this point, SRG pretty much already lost the draft since they don't have any shred to deal with the Hilda. I think they intended to go Sora EXP, but since Luo Yi was open they had no choice but to pick her, resulting in the carry ban. SRG did well, but ultimately they couldn't out-sustain the DPS coming from TLPH. They ended up losing Game 1. But let's take a minute to admire this Savage by Innocent.
He did it in Malaysia! He does it here again! A savage!
Let's head into the draft phase of game number 2. SRG bans Yuzhong, Lance, and of course Eve. The pattern is becoming noticeable. Don't give Sanford Yuzhong. Deny Sanji's utility mage. They also ban Lance here as a respect ban toward Karltzi. TLPH bans Jushin, Claude, and Kalia. SRG throws a curveball and locks Cho with the first pick, giving TLPH carry and Gato. SRG answers with YSS and Sora. Hayao would have been the perfect pick here. TLPH opts for Fredrin instead. The problem with a Fredrin pick is he's not very tanky early game, so you're very reliant on your team until you get your necessary items. SRG goes on to ban Arlott and Farsa. Perfect read. TLPH loves to combo Arlott with a utility jungle. They also threw in the Farsa ban as good measure to further shut down Sanji. TLPH bans Luo Yi and Selena. With not many choices left, TLPH locks Kimmy. Their draft is pretty easy to read at this point. Carl TZ and JP front lines while Oheb and Sanji shred from a distance. The problem with this is, as I stated before, Fredrin is not very tanky early game. So if SRG snowballs, it's game over. SRG rounds out the draft with CC, a dive hero that's great against tanky heroes. With the Vengeance spell, she can hold her own against shred heroes. They also pick Zetian for CC and utility. Their goal is very clear. Secure the early game and deny farm. With no other choice left, TLPH ends their draft with Lapu. Great draft on both sides. The amount of dive and crowd control from SRG is ultimately what won them the game. Cho goes in and lands a knockup on Kimmy. Innocent immediately dives and hits Kimmy and carry with a barrage of crowd control, not allowing them to let off damage. At this point, there was not much TLPH could do. YSS just comes in and cleans up house. The problem was, TLPH had the DPS to go blow for blow, but their damage dealers never got a chance to actually sit down and let off since they were constantly being harassed with crowd control. SRG was non-stop diving their backline. And the rest is history. Let's move on to the draft phase of the final game. TLPH bans Fanny, Kalia, and Sora, finally showing some respect to Sora. SRG of course bans Yuzhong and Jushin, taking away the utility mage for Sanji. But this time they do things a little different. They learn from the first game and ban Claude instead, again limiting TLPH's macro. TLPH first picks Lance. A comfort pick for Carl TZ. SRG picks Hilda and, of course, picks Eve. They're adamant about not giving Sanji a utility mage. If I was TLPH, this is where I would pick up Carrie to deal with the Hilda. And Farsa, since SRG will probably ban her next. They lock the Farsa, but they also pick Hylos. They could have delayed their Rome pick for later on in the draft, but oh well. SRG picks Cece again. At this point it's pretty clear. SRG has no intentions of playing Marksman Gold. They want to minimize the amount of weaknesses they have in their comp. The less people you have to worry about or protect, the less chances the enemy has to snowball. Moving on to the second ban phase, SRG yet again bans Arlott. The reason they keep banning Arlott is simple. They want to dominate team fights. An Arlott in the hands of a player like Sanford can disrupt the whole team fight with one ultimate. They also banned Harith, pretty much guaranteeing this CC will go in the gold lane. TLPH bans Joy and YSS. SRG picks Haya. Great mobility and can reach the backline. Overall a safe pick. Seeing that TLPH doesn't have anyone who can shred the Hilda or CC, you would assume they would choose Carrie here, right? Well, you would be wrong. They go with Alice and Granger. They chose Granger even though they knew the CC was going to be in the gold lane. TLPH has burst damage, but they don't have any shred. All their damage is pretty much skill damage. SRG recognizes this. They double down and finish the draft with Uranus, another tanky hero that can soak tons of damage and regenerate fairly quickly. This game was already won by draft. The rest is history. We all seen how it played out, so I won't show the gameplay. The blueprint that SRG laid out is simple. 1. Limit TLPH's macro by picking or banning Claude, forcing them to play front to back. 2. Don't give Sanji a utility mage, specifically Jushin and Eve. 3. Avoid playing Marksman Gold lane unless it's Claude or Carrie. The less squishy heroes you have, the less people you have to protect or worry about. In other words, no loose ends during team fights. 4. Ban Arlott. Because Sanford. Unfortunately for SRG, they were unlucky enough to match up against TLPH early on and were forced to show their strategy. TLPH is very versatile. I wouldn't be surprised if the next time they meet things go differently. Anyways, if you like the analysis, like and subscribe. Comment if you have any input about my analysis.